This video is an introduction to Mathematica, and I'll do an example of how to construct truth tables. First, I notice this gray horizontal line, and I'm not going to worry about that yet. I'm going to construct a truth table for P implies Q. So I'll start by typing P, and that font is way too small. So I'll go down here to magnification, and I think I'll magnify to try 300%. And I want to define a symbol or a function P implies Q. The P is blue. P is blue, that means that Mathematica does not know the symbol P, and P is being treated as a variable. When I want to define a function, I need to use P underscore. So I'll use P underscore, and now P underscore is black. I want to define a function P implies Q, so I'm going to have to use the arrow. To get to the arrow, the basic math palette here under palettes, basic math assistant, is useful for many things. Again, that basic math palette is much too small. I'm going to magnify it, let's say to 200%. And the basic math palette has some fraction stuff. The advanced has some trig functions. That's the calculator. The basic commands has integration, whatnot. I'm just going to use the type setting to get me to the arrow. P implies the arrow is in pink because the arrow has to have a left-hand side and a right-hand side. P implies Q underscore. And I want to define this function. Define a function means that I need a colon equals for defining a function. Now the P implies Q. The P underscore and the Q underscore are green because Mathematica now understands something about these. It understands that these are variables to be defined. The colon equals is pink because it needs a left-hand side and a right-hand side. Anything in pink is an error. All by itself, this expression is an error. P implies Q. Implies is the same as not P or Q. So that's how I'm going to define this. Mathematica understands not, and or. So I want not P. I'll go back to the type setting, and I'll find the not symbol, not P, or is this. There's a little yellow rectangle which says or in it, and it says keyboard entry, escape, pipe, escape. The pipe symbol is the vertical line, which is the shift backslash. Pipe is a symbol for or in the programming language C. Instead of using the downward wedge, which is the logic symbol for or, I could use pipe for or. Mathematica recognizes common programming languages such as C, with a little bit of tweaks, Fortran, BASIC, and logic symbols such as the down wedge. I'm going to use the down wedge for or. If I use this down wedge, Mathematica in the yellow box says V instead of or. So that can help me distinguish which wedge is which. I'm going to use not P or Q. Or again is in pink, not P or Q. And at the end of any line, I'll put a semicolon. Mathematica always likes semicolons at the end of lines unless you want to display the output. I don't want to display the output of this, I just want it to be a definition. Now I'll use enter. Mathematica has interpreted this line as a cell. So over here on the right, it has a little cell bracket. I'm going to hit enter, and Mathematica did not evaluate this cell. Instead, enter told Mathematica just to make the cell larger. Enter is a line feed. Another symbol I want to define is XOR, so exclusive OR. I'll use P underscore, and let's find the XOR symbol. The XOR symbol is under the times, so XOR, P XOR Q underscore colon equals. Exclusive OR would be P or Q, or Q, but not P and Q. But not means and not, P and Q. And Mathematica churned the line spacing a little bit because I had it too large. And again, I'll put a semicolon here. The line spacing, when it changes like that, doesn't make much difference. It just makes it a little bit sloppy looking, just the window. And this time I wanted Mathematica to evaluate these definitions. So instead of hitting Enter, I will hit Shift Enter. And Mathematica has now labeled this as an input cell. There is no output cell from this because P and Q don't actually have values. They're just dummy variables in this definition. If I want to have actual values, let's try true implies false. So true, and before I typed all of true, TRU was a variable, an unknown. TRUE is a known, Mathematica's known values, functions, and keywords. So I'll start with a capital letter, and known values, functions, and keywords are in black. Because it's in black, Mathematica knows what it is, and Mathematica uses autocomplete and says I can have the word true. It recognizes the word true. It also recognizes the word true Q. Out of curiosity, I'm going to look at true Q, and if I want to know what that is, I can use the F1 key for help. And true Q, the help screen tells me how to use true Q, what true Q means, gives me some examples. I don't actually want to use true Q though. Let's close this window. Let's do true implies false. Shift Enter and evaluate that. And Mathematica evaluates that that is false. Let's try making a truth table now. I'm going to use a do loop for this truth table. I'm going to say, first of all, I'm point out that true implies false was an input cell. There's the cell. The output cell for that was false, and those two cells are grouped together. Now let's make a truth table. I'm going to make a do loop, do, all mathematical words, all Mathematica keywords start with a capital letter, and all Mathematica keywords or functions use square brackets. The square brackets have to be in pairs, so until I use this pair, I have a pink bracket. Now I have a black, but I need an input to this. That's why I have the red caret. Do, I'm going to put some line spaces in here using the Enter key, and do. So I want to print the values of P and Q, and P implies Q for my truth table. Comma, Enter. And I want P to take on the values true, 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 and false, false. And I want Q to take on the values, well, let me point something out. That P, once I say what P is, that P is a dummy variable or a loop variable in this loop, P turns into a teal color, a blue-green color, but Q is still blue. Q is still an unknown. Once I tell the Mathematica what Q is, I tell it it's a dummy variable, and I tell Mathematica it's going to take on certain values, true and false, Q turns into the same teal color. Now I'm going to hit Shift Enter, and Mathematica will evaluate this loop, and I get P is true, Q is true, P implies Q is true, P is true, Q is false, P implies Q is false. I have my truth table, but there are no spaces. This looks kind of ugly. So let's change the print and let's put some spaces in here. Every item in the list of print has to be separated by commas, comma, space. Whoops, what happened there? Shift Enter. That looks a little bit better. I'm going to get rid of the basic math assistant. I don't think I need that anymore. So that truth table looks a little bit better. Let's put some headings at the top of this table before the do loop. So enter, and I'm using copy and paste, Control C, Control V. And P is an unknown. I don't want to print the value of that unknown, which is unknown. I want to print the letter P. P is in gray, meaning it's the string or the character P, and the character Q, and the string P implies Q. Those are in gray now that they're in quotes. And Shift Enter. So I have P, Q, and P implies Q. However, the spacing is off. Let's see. True, so that's a 4-letter word. False. P implies Q. Let's try Shift Enter now. That spacing is a little bit better. So there's my truth table for P implies Q. Let's copy and paste that entire thing. Control C, Control V on a PC. Command C, Command V on a Mac. And I probably need my basic math palette back, because this time I want to change the implies. I want to change that to an XOR. And now I have my truth table for the XOR, exclusive OR. Now those truth tables were both easy. Let's take an example from page 17 of the book. We had 3 variables. We had R and not S implies Q. So we have R, S. I'm going to copy and paste. R, S, Q. And I have R, and not S implies not Q. I'm using parenthesis. I can tell because there's pink, pink, there. Now everything's in black. I can see by the color that everything is matching. Parentheses and square brackets are matched. The Q is in teal. Q is loop variable or dummy variable going from true to false. R and S are in blue. That's a problem because they're not dummy variables. Let's make the S go from true to false. Okay, that works. The R is still blue. Copy and paste, enter. R should be true and false. So now all my dummy variables are in teal. Let's hit shift, whoops, the headings here should be R, S, and T. And the heading for the output, copy and paste. And adjust the spacing just a little bit. And here's my truth table for R and not S implies Q. And that concludes my introduction to Mathematica and the example of truth tables.